Act 3, those who can't play. So our program today is about people trying to learn something that is just hard to learn. And with the World Cup coming next week, I will point out it's really hard to learn to be a great soccer player. Daniel Alarcón, the executive producer and host of Radio Ambulante, has this story about his dad. Growing up in Peru, Daniel's dad, Renato, played soccer around the neighborhood like all the kids did. But he was never, anything special.
So it was certainly like he was never thought of as being an athlete.
What he was thought of from a young age was being like beyond unusually bright.
When I've gone back, I was introduced as, this is Renato's son. And then just heard oh, your dad was so smart. Your dad was so smart. When he was a kid, he won this, he was like 14. He won this national quiz show for kids on TV. And
wow.
Flew from the city where he lived in, flew to Lima. He was the only kid from the provinces who was a finalist, only kid from a public school, front page of the newspaper.
He was an incredibly verbal kid, loved poetry and words, great talker. But again, soccer?
There's two things that happen when you aren't one of the better players. They put you in goal, to be a goalkeeper. Maybe they might make you like ref, but that's like, really like low,
Yeah.
But my dad turned that around and, wasn't goalie or ref. And I'm sure he played. I'm not saying that he didn't play, but he started calling the neighborhood games.
Wait, so he was calling the games. Did he have gear?
He had a microphone and a little speaker.
He can make his voice louder.
He could make his voice louder.
Outside.
Yeah.
And so basically he's just taking equipment down and he's announcing kids' actual games.
Yes.
As they're playing.
Yes.
Like kids he knows.
Yeah, the kids in his neighborhood.
I would just imagine, like, if I were a kid playing in that game, to have somebody, like, calling the game, and I could hear them calling the game as I was doing it, it would make me so much more competitive. You know what I mean? It makes it so much more epic.
Yeah, absolutely. My picture of it is, like, how glamorous. Are you kidding me? Like, suddenly their game is elevated. And it's not just a neighborhood game. Now it's like, look, this is just like we're on the radio, which is just like, that's the same they do for the World Cup.
Daniel's dad would also make up games, like the whole professional games, like all the players, both sides, all the action. Starting, Daniel says, when he was 10 or 11. He would do it just kind of for himself as like a thing to do, though the whole family knew he could do this.
And if, for example, on a Sunday afternoon, after everyone's had lunch, my father would start to be the entertainment for the adults. Hey, Renato, can you make up a game for us? Make it a good one. And he would just describe a game. And it's a completely made-up game, but when a goal would be scored, inevitably, the adults would cheer and like, oh, that was great. That was a great game, And he got really good at this. Eventually he was one of my great uncles. Had a little theater in a town called Mollendo on the beach, a beach town in southern Peru. And they were doing sort of like a night of arts and poetry or whatever, a talent show essentially, yeah. And my great uncle Juan Castor signed up my dad and was like, "You're gonna do it just like you do for us
around the house."
Yeah. On Sunday afternoons. And I think at that point he was like 12 or 13. He goes out on stage, 300 people in the theater, and he's nervous. But what he does is essentially make up a game. So Melgar is the club from Arequipa.
They're the local favorite from the province. And in this game that he met up on stage, they played the big fancy team from the capital, Lima.
Universitario La U.
They're like the Yankees.
They're like the Yankees, yeah. We don't like them. In his telling of it, everyone plays the game of their life, Everyone does it exactly right as if controlled by a marionette, which of course, they were, right?
Yeah.
I find it very easy to believe that people could have been really moved by the sport. It wasn't like a fake game, it was the game.
And so in his game, the hometown team gets it up to the edge and scores.
Yes. Melgar scores. People exploded, like you were cheering something that had actually happened. And the detail that he tells me that I'm always struck by is that when the lights came off and he went off stage, his uncle was crying, just weeping, with joy and with, I guess, pride.
There's a video of you online with your dad on stage, and you tell this story, and then your dad comes up on stage, and then he calls a game.
Yeah. he hadn't done this in like 50 years. But, we threw a jersey on him, and he took the mic.
And you threw some stadium sound underneath for realism.
Sudamericano de fútbol. 40 minutos, el score es 0-0. Hay un despeje de fondo por parte del equipo brasileño.
What's he saying?
So, he's a minute 40, I believe he said, Peruvian team against the Brazilian team. And the Brazilian team is bringing the ball out of the back.
Milton Santos lanza la pelota hacia la derecha.
Milton Santos, who was a Brazilian defender, kicking it out towards the right.
So these are teams from the 50s?
Yeah.
Avanza Brasil, se interpone Heredia.
Oh, okay. So Heredia was a midfielder, a Peruvian midfielder. He intercepts the ball here. So this is where things start shifting.
Heredia se la da Goyeneche. Avanza Goyeneche por la derecha.
So Heredia intercepts the ball and passes towards the right. This is actually a stroke of genius that's coming up.
Hace corto para Navarrete.
Short pass to Navarrete.
Corre, supera la marcación de
He passes Brandausinho.
Chino Rivera cabecea.
Chino Rivera heads it.
Vuelve al campo.
Okay, so this is the part where I was like, Dad, you're really playing with our emotions here. The ball, in his telling, the ball hits the post. Like Chino Rivera heads the ball and it hits off the post.
Right, so it bounces back out.
Right.
Vuelve al campo de juego. La recupera
Back in the field.
Terry
Terry scores. So
People are so excited.
Shiny chills, man.
Peruano.
Gol peruano.
Perú 1, Brasil 0.
I feel excited.
That's great. That's great. See? It works.
It's funny to think that if he had actually been great at soccer, that moment on stage never would have happened. You know?
Right. Yeah. I mean, they might have been singing songs about him.
Oh, somebody else would be.
Some other kid would have been on stage.
Yeah. Daniel Alarcón, he first told this story on his show Radio Ambulante.